Hi everybody, it's Janet with Fruit of the Vine Art Studio, and it's Wednesday at 8 in the month of July, so that means that we are in the middle of our vacation Bible school adventures. And this week we are going to be doing Samson and Delilah. I think it's a story that you're really going to enjoy. There's lots of little twists and turns that goes on in this story. It's a lot of fun. Just talking about vacation Bible school, it reminds me of when I was a kid and how much I really enjoyed going to vacation Bible school. And one of the best things about it was that you always did a craft at vacation Bible school while you listened to the story. And it sort of helped cement that in your mind. It kept that story really vivid and bright in your mind. It made it easy when you would go and see that craft to remember the story that came from the Bible. And that's what I'm really trying to do this year, guys. I'm trying to create a little bit of memories that go along with it. So, hey, I appreciate you jumping on here with me. Please, when you do, just give me a thumbs up, say hi, something, let me know that you're here. I appreciate that. Thanks, Steve. I see that you're on there. I'm just going to click on this. There, now I can see if you get on. Anyway, this is tonight. We are going to be doing, as I said, we will be doing Samson and Delilah tonight. So I hope that you got your print, you got your tracer printed out from here on the page, and that you have it ready on your canvas or whatever you're going to paint. If it's a piece of wood, if it's just a piece of paper, if you're just going to color it with a crayon, you're going to do it with markers, whatever you want to do, that's perfectly fine. The whole idea is just to spend some time together, do a little creation together, and listen to the story. Okay, I just wanted to remind you of a couple of the ones we've already done this year. So far we have done, this is the story of three faithful men, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. We did that story the first week of July, and then we followed that one up with the story of Ruth and Naomi. Here you see Ruth out in the fields. So that was a wonderful story too. I hope you've been enjoying this as much as I have. Now, last week is going to conclude our vacation Bible school for this year. And I'll tell you, I know I'm going to be doing this again next year. I really have a lot of fun doing this. Next week is the last one, and it's going to be Queen Esther. So if you're interested and you want to paint along with me, tomorrow morning when you get up, you'll find that this tracer here has been posted to the page. All you have to do is print it out. Join me next Wednesday at 8 to do that final one for this year's season. I do hope that you will join me for that. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get on with this. As I said, I've got mine printed out, and I've got my drawing already. I've got it transferred onto my canvas. You may wonder, how do you get it from printed out onto the canvas? Well, that's a very simple thing to do. All you do after you print it out is turn it over and take a pencil and draw on it. Lay it right on top of this canvas with the pencil side down, and then take a pen, any kind of a ballpoint pen, and just right over top of each one of the lines, and when you lift it up, it'll transfer right onto the canvas like magic. And all I did was put a Sharpie on top of that so that it would be easier for you to see while we're painting tonight. Okay, so let me get you guys, I'm going to get this situated, tilt this down. Let's see, I want to make sure that I've got it right in line here. It looks like it's just a little bit out. Is that better? I think that pretty well has it in the middle there. You can see all of my crazy paintbrushes and stuff over here. Let me move this stuff. I'll be using these. Okay, so anyway, now this lesson is about Samson. Many people spend a lot of their time trying to figure out what their purpose is and why God made us. Well, Samson knew his purpose when he was born, that he would be delivering the Israelites out of the hands of the Philistines. Now, although Samson wasn't a perfect man, God used him anyway. Samson ended up breaking just about every vow that God gave him, and he had a weakness for women, but God still had a purpose for him. Now, that doesn't mean it's okay to sin, but just imagine after you hear this story how much more Samson could have done or been if he had only really listened and honored God. And the one thing I want you to think about tonight is that God made you for a reason. God has a special purpose for your life. The only way to discover this is by using your talents and your gifts and doing things that you really truly enjoy just for the glory of God. God has a special recipe card that he uses for each of us. I want you to think of some of the special qualities or talents that you might have. Maybe a beautiful smile, or maybe you got really strong legs for soccer. Maybe you've got a great sense of humor, or maybe a beautiful singing voice. Maybe you're very athletic, or maybe you're really artistic. Whatever gifts that you've been given, they were given to you for a reason. And although somebody else may have that same gift, they may share that same gift as you. Maybe you can sing, and you know other people that can sing really well also. Well, that's okay, because each of us are just a little bit different than each other. We're all special in our own ways, and God made us that way on purpose. Okay, so I'm getting out a couple of the colors that I'm going to be using to paint with tonight. I'm going to be using white that's going to be on these pillars right here. I'm going to be using some red that I'm going to use on the robe. I've got green that's going to go across these grapevines up here. And let's see, I've got a little bit of black. I'm going to need some brown over here because he's got on some sandals, and we're also going to be using brown and white to mix together to make a skin tone. So let me see. Where is my brown? Here it is. I'm going to get a little bit of brown out for us. I might have to turn that upside down for a second and let it get down there. There's not much left in that one. But that's okay, because we're going to use up every little bit of it. Anyway, to start, we're going to go ahead and do the background, and I'm going to do the background. Oh, let's do that in a gold color. Let me find my gold. Just because I like gold. Just because I like gold. Here we go. Oh, that made a nice noise. Okay, now, anyway, let's get back to what we were talking about. What God really is wanting you to do, even though your life may not be perfect, what he wants you to learn and grow. He wants you to learn and grow with what you have. He wants you to remember that he made you exactly how he wants you. And remember, God doesn't make mistakes. God doesn't make mistakes. So your life may not be perfect, but God wants you to learn and to grow with what you have and the gifts that he's given you. It's like that old saying, bloom where you are planted. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip my brush in the water and get it just a little bit wet here. And I'm going to mix that in with this gold, get that just a little bit thinned down. I'm using my 1-inch flat brush. And I'm going to paint the background back here using this flat brush. I'm just going to fill it in. Concentrate a little bit. I don't want to get it all over everything. This is going to be white over here, so I'm just kind of trying to make a nice smooth background right there. Get that right up next to where his clothing is. Okay, and there's going to be just a little bit of that coloring right in here. And I'm going to put it right here behind him. I like these flat brushes. They are very easy to manipulate and get them to go in nice little areas that you would think that you would need to be using a much smaller brush on, but they do a really nice job. And like I said, this is a 1-inch flat brush that I am using. And it's made by Grumbacher Academy. It's a very nice brush. I really like it. Okay, now on with our story. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked. Actually, I can go right over this because the green that's going to be on those leaves and on that vine is not going to hurt in the least if it's got any other undercoating colors. That's not going to hurt any kind of a vine in any way whatsoever. So you can just pull the yellow right over the gold right over the top of that. And we're just going to continue filling in right here around Samson's hair. And we're going to go on with the story. All right, let's get started. This is the story of Samson. This story begins with the Israelites getting in trouble with God. They just, for some reason, they couldn't seem to stay out of trouble. Even after God had parted the Red Sea and sent the miracle of manna from the sky to feed them, they were still complaining. Even when Moses went up on the mountain to get the 10 Commandments, what were they doing? They were down there at the bottom of the mountain worshiping some golden idol. So, this time when they started complaining again, God decided it was time to punish them. So, for 40 years, the Israelites wandered in the wilderness before reaching the Promised Land. And then they settled in peace. Now, to the west of where they settled, there lived a tribe, a very warlike tribe, and they were called the Philistines. And the Philistines at that time had conquered Israel, and they were the ones that were in control. Okay, so I've set this little story up for you here. The Philistines are in control, and the Israelites have settled in peace, hopefully, but that warlike tribe lives next door, and they have conquered Israel, and now they're in control. So this is where the story of Samson begins. I'm going to get this right in between his legs here, guys. One day, an angel of the Lord came to the wife of Manoah, a man who was of the family of the Danites, Mr. Manoah. The angel came to his wife. Now, the wife of Manoah had no children at that time, and she was believed to be barren. Now, what does barren mean? Barren means that she couldn't even have any children. And the angel said unto her, Behold, you can't have children now, but God is going to give you a son. Make sure that you do not drink any wine or eat any animal that is considered to be unclean. You will have a special son. Make sure that he never cuts his hair, eats grapes or raisins, that he never drinks any wine or touches a dead body, because his purpose is going to be to save the Israelites from the Philistines. Now, this special boy was Samson. And as he grew up, he realized that he had a special gift, that he was incredibly strong. I'm going to switch over here, guys, to my, where is it? To my little round brush. Getting my little round brush out, number 6 round, and I'm going to do the red right here. Going to get a little water on my red, mix it in just a little bit, and I'm going to paint his outfit red. Not the belt, though. Okay. So, as Samson, he had a special gift. They realized that as he was growing older, that he was incredibly strong. And I mean incredibly strong. As Samson got older, he was so strong that he was able to kill a lion with his bare hands. Think about that. Here he is, a young guy, and he's able to grab a lion and kill it with his bare hands. A big lion. So he was incredibly strong. In fact, he was the strongest of all the Israelites. I'm trying to fill that in and not touch. I got that on his belt already, but that's okay, because we're going to do the belt in a little bit of a different color, too. Okay. One day, he was captured by the Philistines, and they tied his hands together. But Samson broke the rope, and he fought the Philistines, and he got the jawbone of an ass, and he defeated 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of that ass. He was able to defend himself against 1,000 men using the jawbone. Think about that. That's the jawbone of a donkey. He had the jawbone of a donkey, and he beat 1,000 men with it. I'm going to turn him around here for me, just so I can see better what I'm doing here. That red's got a very thin kind of consistency to it. It's not a very dark red. Okay, so his fighting was so fierce that the Philistines ran away after that. And after this battle, the Israelites were so proud of Samson that they made him one of their rulers. In fact, he was their ruler. One of the rulers. I guess it could be said that the Philistines didn't like Samson, and Samson didn't really like the Philistines either. There was no friendship there, just put it that way. The Philistines were constantly trying to figure out the secret behind Samson's strength. If they could just figure that out, then they could get rid of this great enemy that they had, this Samson, who was able to defeat 1,000 men with a jawbone. So they were constantly trying to figure it out. If they just could figure it out, they could get rid of him. Now, sometime later, Samson was staying in the city of Gaza, and a band of Philistines locked, and it was late at night, and the Philistines locked and they bolted the gates that were at the entrance of the city, and they waited. Now, what do you think they thought they were going to do, guys? Yeah? Well, when Samson tries to leave in the morning, we'll capture him, they thought. But that night, the mighty Samson tore down the gates of the city, and he carried him away on his back. And the watchmen that were there, they just watched him. They didn't dare try to stop him. I mean, would you? Here goes some guy, busts down the whole gate to the city and goes walking off carrying it on his back. I don't think I'd try to stop him. Would you? I doubt it too. Not likely. Are you going to stop that guy, huh? Anyway, by now Samson was a young man, and he started to fall in love. There was this Philistine woman, and her name was Delilah. Now I'm going to rinse this brush, and I'm going to get my small brush. And with the small brush, I'm going to paint the brown shoes down here. Let me get some brown paint. Oh, I was going to say there may not be any in there, but yes there are. There's a little bit. There we go. I use every drop of it, guys. I don't know. Use all that up. Okay, so now I'm going to use my very small little liner brush here, and I'm just going to use that, and I'm going to paint these shoes down here on his feet. So I'm going to flip this around and keep my hand out of the red while I'm telling you the rest of the story. So now he's met Delilah. Now the rulers of the Philistine, they noticed that Samson was really visiting Delilah an awful lot lately, hanging around, you know. So they decided they'd go and talk to Delilah and see if maybe they could make a deal with her, because now, as you remember, Samson's an Israelite and Delilah, she's a Philistine. Okay, so the Philistines, you know, they figured since she's one of them, they'll go talk to her and see if they can convince her to help them, and they'd make a deal with her. Now the Philistine rulers, they asked Delilah, they asked Delilah to find out the secret of Samson's strength. One of the men, he asked her, he said, well, we were wondering if you could find out what makes Samson so strong. You know, we are so curious about this that if you could tell us the answer, why, we will give you 1,100 pieces of silver from each of us. Now, I mean, that sounds like pretty much right now to me, 1,100 pieces of silver from each of them. That was about $5,000 worth of money back then. I mean, back in those days, that was a ton of money. That was super riches. Just imagine all the stuff that Delilah could buy with that money. Well, actually, that promise of the money was all it took to convince Delilah to ask Samson about his secret. So, when she asked him, she went to him and she asked him to tell her the secret of his strength, and Samson laughed. And he told her, well, if I was to be tied up by 7 bowstrings from a bow and an arrow that had never been used before, from the 7 bowstrings, then I would lose my strength. So, later that night, after they had eaten, Delilah went and met with the rulers of Philistine, and she told them what Samson had said, what he had told her about the 7 bowstrings. They immediately went and found 7 bowstrings to give to her, and they told her, now you tie Samson up with these bowstrings when he falls asleep, and then let us into your house. And when you wake him up, we're going to capture him. So, Delilah waited for Samson to fall asleep, and then she tied him up with the 7 bowstrings. Excuse me, guys, I'm going to take a drink. She tied him up with those 7 bowstrings. And then she let all of those men come into the house, and she hit them all around. And when everybody got ready, Delilah shouted, Samson, the Philistines are here. Samson sprang from the bed, and all the bowstrings, they just broke like they were threads. Delilah felt quite silly, and it really kind of hurt her feelings that Samson wouldn't tell her the truth. And she was also just a little bit worried that the Philistines might not pay her. So it kind of tells you a little bit about her. So she put on a sad face, and she looked up at Samson, and she said, you made a fool out of me. You lied to me. Now, seriously now, tell me the real secret of your strength. I'm going to rinse this little brush off, and I'm going to go straight to the green and start doing these little vines right here. So, she said, you made a fool out of me. You lied to me. Now, seriously, this time I want you to tell me the secret to your strength. Well, this time, Samson told her, well, if anyone was to tie me up with brand new ropes that have never been used, why, then I would become just as weak as any other man. So what do you think that Delilah did? She ran to tell the Philistine rulers what Samson had told her. So, once again, she waited for Samson to fall asleep. Oh, once again, the Philistine rulers got her those ropes to tie him up. So once again, she waited for Samson to sleep, and then she tied him up with those new ropes. Once she got him all good and tied, she shouted again, Samson, the Philistines are here. But without any difficulty at all, Samson just snapped the ropes like they were not even there, like he had never been tied up. Now this time Delilah was really angry, and she was embarrassed. Embarrassed. Twice he had done this. But she didn't want Samson to know that she was really that embarrassed, so she said to him, she smiled and said, why have you mocked me and told me lies? Now tell me the truth. Where does your strength come from? You would think by now he'd probably be catching on to some of this. But this time he told her, he is catching on to it. He has an idea of what's going on. He sees. So this time he tells her, well, if you was to weave the 7 locks of hair that's on my head into your loom with a piece of fabric and pin it to the beam, well, then I would be like any ordinary man. So, once again, after Samson fell asleep, she convinced him to lay near where she was, and when he fell asleep, Delilah took the 7 locks of his hair and wove them in with some fabric up to the beam on the loom, and then she placed the pin on it. Once she got that all finished, what do you think she did, guys? Once again, hi Clover, hi James, I'm glad you guys are with me. Thank you for joining me. Anyway, sorry about that. Once again, after she wove his hair into the loom, she did the same thing again. She shouted, "Samson! Samson, get up! The Philistines are here!" What do you think happened this time? He woke out of his sleep, he jumped up with the pin hooked to the beam and the fabric wove in his hair and just ran right out as if it wasn't even there. Delilah couldn't believe this now. This was just getting to just be too much. She said to him, "Samson, how can you say that you love me when your heart isn't with me? Now, you've mocked me 3 times, and you still haven't even told me where your strength really does come from." This went on for days and days and days. I mean, every single day he'd get up, she'd start in again. "Samson, Samson, why haven't you told me? Samson, why won't you tell me? Where does your strength come from? Do you not? Why is your heart not with me? Samson, Samson." She followed after him like a pitiful little puppy dog, just aggravating him all the time, constantly questioning him and asking him, and oh goodness, he was just getting so tired of it. It was just nerve-wracking. All this went on for days and days. Finally, Samson, he just couldn't take it any longer, and he finally gave in, and he told her all of his heart. He told her, he said, "I will tell you everything. If my hair is cut, I will lose my strength. I was given this gift by God, and I had to take certain vows when I was born. If my head is shaved, I will become as weak as any other man." Oh boy, Delilah wasn't sure what to think of this, but she really thought that this had to be the truth this time. She really had a feeling that I mean, he seemed very serious this time. The other times he had laughed, but she knew this time, I think she was pretty well sure she had wore him down. So she went and she told the Philistines what Samson had told her. So that night she got him to fall asleep. She got him to lay down, put his head in her lap. She was rubbing his head and talking sweet to him. He fell asleep, not even paying any attention. While he was asleep, she got some Philistine to come in. And what do you think he did? He shaved Samson's head. And as he shaved Samson's head, all of the power and the strength left him with his hair. And when he woke up the next morning, the Philistines were waiting for him. Samson tried to fight, but his strength was gone. The Philistines took him, and they put him in the prison. Now, while he was in prison, the Philistines even poked out his eyes so that he couldn't see anymore. And then they chained him up with brass, and they made him work at the grinding wheel. He just held on to the wheel and walked around in circles. He was blind, and he just kept pushing the grinding wheel all day long, chained to it, just pushing the grinding wheel every day. This went on and on and on. Poor Samson down there chained to that grinding wheel, working, blinded. Now, a while later, the Philistines were having a big party. Okay, so at this point, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a little bit of the brown and the white together and get me some skin tone and go ahead and paint Samson. So to do that, I'm going to get quite a bit of white. And mix it with some brown until I get the tone that I'm looking for. And I'm just using the regular brown, and I'll show you here in just a second. Okay. So a little while later, it's been a while now. Samson's been down there pushing that grinding wheel. He's got his eyes poked out. It's been a while. And the Philistines, they decide they're going to have a great big party at the temple. They're going to have them a big old party. Great big party. They're going to have thousands and thousands of people come and gather and have a really great time. And they were all in there. Okay, so see what I did now? I mixed that with the white. And I've got me a light brown skin tone that I'm going to use for Samson here. A light brown skin tone. So I'm going to, well, I think his shoes should be dry right now, so I'm going to turn it around. And I'm going to do this side. Okay. So anyway, they're having this big old party in the temple. They have thousands of people at this party. I'm talking just thousands of people. They're all laughing, and they're talking, and they're retelling the story about how they caught Samson, how he was the enemy to their people, and they caught him, and what all they'd done to him, how he was this once mighty man, and now he was no longer mighty. He was nothing more than some corn grinder. So they were just mocking him and making fun of him. And then all of a sudden, they were having such a good time. One of them came up with the idea, well, go get him from prison and bring him on up here to the party so we can make sport of him, laugh at him, have good fun. We can bully him up a little bit. Let's get him up here so we can make fun of him and laugh at him at his expense, you know. Get him up here. So they sent this little fella down to go get Samson out of the prison. Now, they really didn't pay much attention to Samson after they had got him down there. They kept him locked up down there. They wasn't paying much attention to the fact that Samson's hair was actually starting to grow back at this point. They wasn't paying attention to that, though. And they certainly weren't paying attention to it on this evening. They were all having such a good time that Samson's strength was last thing on their mind. They'd sent him down, sent that little fella down there to go get him, and the little guy went down, and this young lad brings the mighty Samson up, and he's got the brass, or he's got the chains on him, and he's got him, and Samson says to him, can you take me over by the pillars so that I might lean against them? I'm awfully tired from pushing that grinder to grind that corn. I can't really even tell where I'm at. Do you think you could maybe take me over by the pillars and stand me between the pillars so that I can like lean against that and just relax a little bit? I'm not sure what's going on here. And you know, poor Samson, he can't see, so the little lad, he leads Samson over in between the two pillars, and he chains him up over there by the pillars so that Samson can be there over by the pillars. And you know, they hadn't really thought about Samson's hair growing again. The Philistines didn't even realize that God still had a plan for Samson's life. So Samson prayed to God to make him strong one last time. So Samson was there. He was chained between those two pillars, and he prayed to God, and he said, O Lord, remember me and strengthen me. I pray only this once, O God, that I may be avenged of the Philistines for taking my 2 eyes. Now, going back to this, the 2 pillars that guy had chained, that young boy had chained him in between, well, those 2 pillars just happened to be the very pillars that held up the roof to the whole temple. And it just so happened that there was so many people there. I mean, we're talking the temple was absolutely full of people. Men, women, lords of the Philistines, everybody and anybody was there. There was about 3,000. Think about that. 3,000 men and women were there at the temple. So they were all having a good time, and a whole bunch of them were up on the roof of the temple too, which was above where Samson was. Samson was down below, standing inside the temple in between the two pillars that held up the roof. That's where he was chained. And so then Samson reached out his hands and he felt the pillars. And then he called on God and he said that prayer. He prayed to God one more time to give him strength to avenge the Philistines for his eyes, for poking out his eyes. And he felt that surge of strength going through him. And he pushed, he bent and he pushed as hard as he could push. He pushed. And the pillar finally cracked. And then when they started to crack, then they started breaking. And then when they started breaking, then the walls started cracking. And then the whole building started crumbling and falling and tumbling. And all of the people, even Samson, including Samson, was killed. And although he lost his life, Samson had taken terrible revenge on his enemies. He had killed more men in that one night than he had killed in his whole lifetime. He took a terrible revenge upon them. And after that, that was how God freed the Israelites from the Philistines, was through the mighty Samson and his strength of killing over 3,000 of them by crumbling the temple down around them. Now, I think that's a pretty interesting story myself. I don't know about you. I hope you enjoyed it. The story is from the greatest book that was ever written, and that book is the Bible. And this story comes from the book of Judges, and it is in chapters 13 and 16. And I want you guys to think about this now. This week we learned that God made each of us special and made each of us for a reason. Earlier we talked about how God had a special recipe when he made each of us. How he never makes a mistake and you're exactly the way he made you because that's how he wants you. He made each of us new and different, and he always uses a different recipe for each person. I got that just over the edge. I'm going to take my finger and just wipe that off. There we go. See, if you get a mistake, you just do it real quick. Take your finger and wipe it off. If you got a little baby wipe, that'll take care of the mistakes right away too. You can always just do that. Just real quick. Just wipe it off. Okay, so it's just like that. There are no mistakes in art. God doesn't make mistakes. You can't make a mistake with art. You just wait for it to dry, paint over top of it. There's no mistake. Can't make a mistake. So God gave each of us some kind of a different ingredient. Some like to sing, some people like to play football, some people draw really good, some people can take photographs really good, they have a good eye for photography. Everybody's got just a little bit of a different talent, a little bit of a different ingredient. And I want you to think about how you can use your ingredients this week. I want you to think of some of the things that you really like to do, some of the things that you're really good at. How could you use those ingredients this week for God? I want you to remember the special gift that God gave to Samson and to you. And I want you to think how he would want for you to use those special gifts. Now, right now, that's the end of the story. I'm just going to keep painting and get Samson finished here. We're going to give him a darker beard. I think I might make his beard and his hair a dark black kind of color. I think that would contrast well with that red garment that I put on him. Notice I haven't used any blue, and I usually use blue in every painting. Blue's sort of one of my main colors, I guess you could say. I like blue. So maybe I'll get a little blue out and put that on his belt. I don't know, maybe I'll do the belt in gold. That might work too. Just gonna fill this in real quick. I got busy telling the story and didn't paint as quick this time. Okay, so there we got this done. I gotta get his arms painted. Although there's really not a lot more to paint here. It'll move pretty quickly at this point. Do hope that you guys did enjoy that story. Now next week, be sure and join me for the story of Queen Esther. That's a big story. That one will take us a little bit longer. And in the painting, you'll see that she's got a feast that she's working on. And if you have any special Bible stories that you think I should do, I would love for you to leave a comment and let me know what stories you would like to hear or would like to paint and would like to see me draw pictures of. I'd love to do it. And if we don't do it this year, we can always do it next year. Or we can make it a special thing and we can do it anytime. It doesn't even have to be scheduled. We can do something special. You tell me what you'd like to do. I was also thinking maybe of fairy tales too. Mother Goose type ones. I didn't know if anybody would be interested in doing those type stories too, besides the Bible stories. I really enjoy the Bible stories. I truly do. I get a kick out of telling them. And I hope that you enjoy hearing them too. We're just going to get him filled in real quick right here in his hand. Get that right in between right there, just a little bit. There we go. Get this hand over here. And then when I get done, I can always take my little Sharpie marker and go back over my lines so that it stands out better, which is one of the things that I normally do. I just don't usually do that when I'm online because that takes a while, and we're already here about an hour by the time I get everything painted. What are we at now? Yeah, we're 42 minutes at this point, so I will do the Sharpie part after the fact. But it always gives it a nice crisp look when you get done. After the paint dries, to go ahead and take your Sharpie and just go right back over the lines again if you're painting with me. It makes a difference in the way that it looks. Gives it more of that crisp look. Defined, obviously. There we go, just getting this filled in. Fill in that big strong arm. That guy's got those, he's got guns, as they would say. Big, strong, muscular arms. I should have looked up and seen who's the strongest man in the world now. I'm sure there's somebody. I don't know. They have all them contests and stuff, so I'm sure that there would be somebody. Okay, let's get us a little bit of gold here. And I'm going to mix just a little bit of brown in it just to darken it up a little so it's not the exact same color as what's behind him. There we go. It's more of a dark gold. I just mixed a little bit of brown into the gold to make it a little darker. And I'm going to use that to just do this right in here. Don't know that it's going to be dark enough to cover that red, but we'll see. At least this part didn't get a bunch of goop on it. It's still nice and able to be just painted over easily. Really appreciate you guys joining me tonight. Hey, Carol. Hi, Diane. I appreciate you guys being here. I just happened to look up and see that more people would join me. I appreciate that very much. We're about to get this little fella done. I think we're just going to have to fill in his hair, which I'm going to do that with this black. Fill in his belt here. That doesn't want to cover that red, but that's okay. I'm not going to let that bug me. Because you know I can be picky about it, but that ain't going to get me nowhere. Okay, we're going to rinse this off. I'm going to add just a small amount of white to the black. Just, I don't want it to be pitch black, is what I'm trying to achieve. Just not a gray, but just a lighter black, so that when I put a couple of little shading on it, it'll show up a little better. Okay. Let's see about that. Nah. Almost gotta... That's alright, we'll go with it. I might just highlight it with white instead. He's getting a little older in this part of the story anyway, huh? He ruled Israel, was a judge, actually, for over 20 years. So, I'm not exactly how old he was, though, when he died. I didn't look that part up. Maybe I should have, just to be able to know how old Samson actually was when he pulled down the walls. But he ruled for over, he was a judge for over 20 years, one of the rulers for over 20 years. So, and that kind of gives you an idea that he had to be a little bit older anyway, so. Not necessarily old, but just a little older. He wasn't a real young fella at that point after they did all of that to him. I can remember as I was a kid, we used to watch the black and white movies that would be shown on TV. The stories like with Ruth. I can remember the movie Ruth. I remember the story Samson and Delilah. I wish I could remember who were the stars in that movie, though. That was a really... I remember that movie. That was really good. The thing I remember most vividly was him being chained and pushing around that grinding wheel after they gouged out his eyes. Felt so bad for the fella. Yeah. It's funny, you know, I don't, you know, you really don't see a lot of those movies on TV now. Maybe they're on some of the older, like, you know, Turner channels or whatever. Maybe I just don't happen to see. I don't do a lot of remote, you know, search anyway. So maybe I just don't see it. But I don't really see those movies offered anymore as often, I guess, maybe. Maybe that's the problem. I just don't see it as often, or I don't look often. They used to come on pretty often. I'm just going to kind of bring this almost all the way up to his beard, but I'm not going to bring it all the way up to his beard. See how I'm doing that right there? I'm going to take a little bit of white and just kind of squiggle it right on the side, but I'm just trying to keep a little definition right there in between that area. Same with like right here. I'm going to do the same thing over here on this side. Just kind of not completely fill that in. There we go. Now you can still kind of see his beard there, you know. Works out a little better that way. Okay, so now what we've got left to do is we're going to paint the pillars white, which we really don't have to, but we have to do a little bit of graying inside of here, so I'm going to add some more white to this and make it gray. A light gray, a much lighter gray. Just keep adding some more white to it and adding some more white to it. I don't know if you guys can see. Yeah, you can. You can see where I'm at. I'm adding more white to it and more white to it, just getting a lighter gray. Alright. And I'm going to take this light gray and I'm going to put it right in between here. Where this is cracked. Going in between where the pillars are cracking. And we'll do a little outlining of that with some darker color too. But for now, we're just going to kind of get it in these little grooves. here. Oop, I just smeared that one. That's alright. That ain't gonna hurt nothing. That ain't gonna hurt nothing, like I said. They ain't no mistake. Just let it dry and we can paint right over it. Doesn't matter. Push this right up through here. Alright. A little bit in this area. Now, if you guys are painting along with me, if you got yours out, all I'm doing is doing these little areas in between the cracks of the pillar. I'm filling that in with this lighter gray. It's going to be just a little bit over in here. Maybe back in the background of some of these chains. Okay, and why heck, why not? While we're at it, we may as well use a little bit of that gray. Let's get this brush again and take that gray. Just do this. Get this right in between. Give it a gray floor. And I am just very carefully pulling it down along the edge of the lines here. We go on this side over here, on this leg. Like I said, I really do like this brush. This brush is very easy. Now, watch me say that, though, and do something crazy. I better just hush. I better just hush. Jinx myself. Yeah, we're simplifying this one. We're not adding a bunch of different colors. We're just going to keep it with very simple colors. It's got some gray, gold, red, brown, black, and green. And white. Get a little more of this. I'm concentrating, guys. I'm sorry I'm being quiet. Trying to get that right in between that area there. Right around the bottom of the pillar. Right there. Got to get this little spot back in the corner. Bring that down. Right around that pillar. There we go. Let me get a touch of water. Not too much, though. I don't want much. Just a touch of water. Just to thin it down a little bit here. So I can get this last little corner filled in. You've got to be careful right there around his foot. Top of the sandal. Going to just drag this around his foot real quick. I'm going to add a little bit more dark to that and just put some shading right underneath where he's standing, just to give him a shadow. Let me get this just a little thicker here. That's awfully thin looking where I put the water in it. So I'm just going to thicken it just a little bit right there. Flip that over. There we go. Okay, so now we want it to look like he's actually kind of standing here, so we're going to add just a little more dark to it. And we're just going to kind of, wait a minute, add a little more light. Going to kind of just darken it up right underneath where he's at, right in here. Okay, just sort of darken that up a little bit underneath where his feet are. He's standing here between the two pillars. So we need a little bit of shading underneath where he's going to be at. I'll just going to bring it right up to his shoes there, right up to the edge. There we go. There, now. That gives him a little more of an appearance of actually being there where he's supposed to be, and you can kind of see it going out a little bit, going over around this way a little. And then you can see, we'll put a little bit of shading right over in here too, right around the bottom of the pillar. Right around the bottom of this pillar. Maybe some shading on the floor. Right along here. Just a little bit to define the floor in the back. There we go. Okay, so now we've got this kind of shaded in. I'm going to drag that and kind of smooth it just a little bit because I kind of toughened it up. There we go. Now we just need, let me put this back over here. We're going to go back to the red and put that, where did I put that paintbrush? Here we go. Let me get a touch of red. We're going to just fill in his mouth. Or is that his tongue sticking out? Actually, it was supposed to be when I drew it. When I drew this. When I drew it, that was supposed to be his mouth open, and he was like in a anguish kind of look on his face. But now that I've colored it red like that, it actually kind of looks like he's got his tongue sticking out. So, whatever you want it to be, that's what it is, I suppose. There we go. I'm going to take the lighter gray, and like I said, I'm going to thin it down just a smidge with some water, because I don't want it to be too thick. And I'm just going to take it and just kind of bring it around down through here, just to kind of give a little bit. I'm not too crazy about how that turned out right there, so I think I'm going to mix a little more black on top of it. See, I just fix it with as I go. I don't like it. I'm just going to mix in some more black. It's too light. I want it to just kind of show where the other area would be, but not be that. There, just kind of getting it like that. That looks better. All I'm doing is kind of pushing that light gray up. Taking that brush and just kind of pushing it up a little bit with this slightly darker, blacker color. Just so that it kind of, you can still see the change in the color there behind his beard. But it's just very light. Just very light. Yeah, I'm looking over here at the computer to see if you actually, you guys, yeah, you can still see it. You can see it. You could even give him some little highlights in his hair if you want. A little bit of, well, that's not even showing, is it? You don't have to. It's whatever. Whatever you want to do. You can highlight his hair. You can make his hair any color you want it to be. It doesn't even have to be that color. Okay, so all we got left to do is get us some gold. Oh, wait a minute. We got to paint the pillars, don't we? They should be fairly easy. I think for my pillars, I'm just going to be using my chip brush. I'm going to get some water. I'm going to go into the white, thin it down some. Not too much, but a little bit, because it's awfully thick sitting here waiting on me to use it. I got too much out, and then I didn't use it, and it's getting thick, thick, thick. Okay, so we're just going to take the white, just kind of pull it on here. Now, if we get a little bit of the gray mixed in it too, that's going to be all right. We're not going to worry about getting, in fact, I want to get a little bit of the gray mixed in it. I got it too thick, so let me thin it down just a little bit. There we go. I will go back over the little black lines with my Sharpie marker once it dries so that you can see the cracks, or you can even do that with your fine line pen. You can do it with your paintbrush. I'm just trying to cover up the little spots where I've gotten the gold paint on it. And fill these in. Because it really doesn't have to have the white on the pillars at all, honestly. But I'm going to anyway. Oh, and I see where I didn't put any gray up there. But that's okay, we can fix that too. I'm just dragging this over very lightly, so it's thin enough to be seen, to still see through. And that way I can see where I'm going to go back and put my lines. But it's still, I wanted to put the paint on it because you can still see where the tracing had gone over it. And you always want to have the canvas to have, you know, a layer of acrylic on it. So we're going to go ahead and just fill this in real quick through here. Right in there. Fill that in. I'm going to add a little gray to them though and give them some, just a little bit of shading. Just a little bit. That's getting thick there to where you don't really see it well. But that's okay. We're going to take care of that too. I'm going to just drop a black in here. Take it off to the side. Where this white's been thinned down. And I'm going to mush this around in it some. Get me just a little bit of gray. Getting too much. Here. Just a little bit, and then I'm going to take my paper towel and just kind of pull it right back off. What I just put on, I'm just going to kind of pull it right back off. I am putting it on, but I'm also kind of taking it right back off so that the pillar has a little bit of a marbled sort of look to it, but not really you know what I mean? It's sort of a marbled look, but it's not. I'm putting it on and I'm just pulling it back off, taking this paintbrush, taking my paper towel and just sort of working the gray in around it a little bit and pulling it back out. That's why I've said I didn't do this gray right here. I thought, don't worry about it because you're going to put more gray on anyway. So just put the gray in the crack right there. Okay, and then mush this off some more. Mush, mush, mush. Mush, mush. Pick it up. Pull it off. Pick it up and pull it off. Alright, I'm going to do the same thing over here on this side. Just kind of maybe get a little more white to it. Kind of pushing it off to the side here. I'm going to do this whole one going all the way down. Just kind of tap it on there. Take my paper towel. Take it right back off. Is that shaking you guys all the heck and back? Yeah, it sort of is, isn't it? Yeah, it's pretty shaky. I'm sorry, I apologize about that. Didn't want to make it crazy shaky, but yeah, here I am doing that anyway. Okay, we're gonna just kind of mush that a little bit right there. What the heck? How'd you get that black on it? Oh, okay, so here we've made a boo-boo-boo, but that's okay. We'll fix that up. Let me get a little more white. And then we'll just boo-boo right over the top of the boo-boo. Put that back over there. Lift that back up. There we go. There we go. All right. Now we're going to get a little bit of gold. Just a tiny bit. Because I don't have any brass. It would be brass chains, but I don't have brass, so I'm using gold. I'm using a gold instead of a brass. I'm going to use my little fine line. And we're going to be done here in just a second, guys. I know we're going over the hour now. I'm sorry. I didn't intend to go over an hour tonight, but here we are again. And I get started painting, and as you guys know, I just keep adding another little bit, and another little bit, and another little bit, and another little bit. Because I have so much fun. And I enjoy spending time with you all, and I enjoy painting, telling the stories, and doing the vacation Bible school. Gold doesn't show up very well in that gold, in that background, does it? I guess I shouldn't have. Maybe I should have used that sky blue in the background instead. But I thought maybe the temple would have more of golden walls than a sky blue wall. Anyway, that looks all right. That looks fine. That actually does. That looks fine. That'll be perfectly fine for chains on him. We're just filling them in real quick here with this gold. So, it gives the impression of brass anyway. Kind of, sort of. Okay. So now I'm going to take just a tiny bit of the red, touch of black, and mix it in that red. Just a little touch. Get me a bit of a darker red here. I'm just going to just kind of drag a little bit of the darker red right here around these little areas where he would have a little bit of shading. Right down through there. Pull it down here on his shirt. There we go. Kind of bring it on the side here. Back. There we go. A little bit of shading over here now. You got to get the inside of this shirt. In that area. We're just kind of giving it some shadows. Where he's got his sash tied here. It's a little bit darker coming up out of this area. Maybe right across where it's tucked in here. Alright, and then we're going to put a little bit of darkening down here on the bottom of it. Right underneath down in here. Over the top of that big strong thigh he's got there, over his knee. darkened area right in here where there's the wrinkle. This would be darker because this is pulled over the top on this side, so down underneath is going to be darker in shade. So we're going to put the darkness back in here. Kind of leave an area right along the top of his thigh, right in there, that is still the same light colored red. Okay, and we're going to put a little bit right here where those two wrinkles are, right in between where the sash is, right beneath it. Coming down a little bit over his hip. Just a little over the top of the knee, kind of coming around a curve. Just kind of bringing it, building a little bit of a contrast in the shading on there. See how that kind of made the whole outfit kind of pop? So that's just by giving a little bit of shading. Now you can do the same thing. You can do the browns that way, add a little bit of black to the brown. You can add a little bit of shading. This is all up to you. We're done painting at this point, guys. If you're done, you're more than welcome to stop. If you'd like, we can go ahead and just add little bits to it. I'm going to add a little bit darker right down here at the bottom sole of his shoe. Make that darker than the part that's under his foot completely. I'm just making the sole darker right down through here under his foot. Just a wee bit. There we go, and then we can even make a little darkness right here along the top of his foot and on this side. Do the same thing over here. Just a little bit of darkness right along the top of his foot right here. Just for a little bit of contrast and shading. Alright, so now we've got his shoes shaded. We can go to the gold, mix in with that little bit of brown that we've already got, that little bit of black that's already on this here brush. That's okay, we aren't even going to worry about it. Just keep mixing it with some gold now, and then we're going to take that and just kind of find just some spots to just shade it in a little better. Kind of darken it a little bit, so that it looks different than the gold that's in the background back here. Just darken it up just a smidge. Got it right there. There we go. Just lift it right up with my finger. Okay, so now we can go back to the skin tone that we worked on before. Add a little bit of darkness to that. Get you a drop of water. Much darker, just a little bit. Oop, that's too dark. Here we go. Just kind of going where his ankle was, right around the back of his calf, right in there. Edge of his knee, just giving a little bit of shading right here underneath. Kind of need to thin that down just a smidge. Okay, there we go. That's a little better. Just going to bring that right down along the back of his calf here. Under his foot. Right under his toe. Right under the top of the shoe. Just shading him up a little bit. Bring that around that calf area. And this is his knee. So there, we'll bring that around right there. Just giving him a little definition here. A little bit under his arm. Coming up in that armpit. You gotta watch that red I put in there. Yep, getting in that red. Go back and get this brown, beige color. That's going to be like right along through here. Right under his arm through here. Not going to do too much on that one. Get underneath this arm. Just kind of bringing it down and around. And what we're doing is we're just giving it a little definition, just slight definition is all we're doing. Just giving it slight shading. Hand there, right along through here. Right there. Right across his cheeks here. I'm going to do his cheeks, yep. Or right under his cheeks, I guess, right here. Where his face is scrunched up and his eyes are kind of darkened. Maybe a little right underneath his hairline. Oops. Don't start doing that, Janet. Okay. Shade his ears just a wee bit. You don't have to if you don't want to. Alright guys, I think he's kind of done at this point. I think we've done all we can kind of do to this here Samson. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you liked the painting. I hope you had a good time. I appreciate you being here with me tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you again next week. Next Wednesday we'll be doing Queen Esther. My glasses are reflecting terribly in that light, I'm telling you. We'll be doing Queen Esther next week. I do hope that you will join me. I hope you enjoyed Samson and Delilah. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you again on Saturday at noon. Bye. Oh, Diane, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Good night, everyone. Thank you.